What a good way to start our energy, to start our morning. One of the things that I loved about Unity when I first found it was that each time I went, I got something practical that I could apply to my life and make a difference in it. To go from thinking and wanting things to recognizing and being able to see what I'm doing that may or may not be in alignment with what I want. So I had blind spots that all of a sudden it was like, I didn't realize I was doing that, or I didn't realize I had a choice there and I could do that instead. And so it was those practical tools that made me want to come back each Sunday because my life was changing, my mind was changing, things were shifting. Sometimes it's a matter of finding things we haven't seen before, bringing light to the dark places, investigating the mind, investigating our actions, and taking inventory. And a lot of times we don't give ourselves the time to do that, or we don't make a commitment to what will end up creating what we're looking for, right? So many times when we look at shifts or getting into alignment, we think, I have to do something grandiose, right? If there's anyone here that has a hard time keeping their place tidy or clean, you might always think to yourself, I just need to redo everything, just get through everything, have 50 people here, clean it once and for all, and then it'll all be okay. Has anyone done that? You might do that, and then what happens? Slowly, it goes back to exactly how it started. That dramatic gesture did not result in what we were looking for. Why? We talk so much in Unity about our thoughts and shifting our thoughts, but another place of untapped power is shifting our actions. Sometimes we overthink everything. And we think we have to take these dramatic steps, but sometimes it's more about the small, consistent, practical, principle-based application of acting different. Of acting differently, of changing what we do. Because that time when we just clear out everything and organize everything and change everything, unless we are acting in alignment with that, it is going to go back to what it was. I always recommend to people when they want to have some lasting change in those departments, I say, start with a corner, start with a room, start with a shelf. You figure out where you are. You may be able to start with a room. If that's too much, literally start with a shelf, start with a drawer. Everything in this drawer will be folded. All of the rest of the drawers, fine, leave them. Just this little closet. Just this little closet. The rule is I must be vigilant about this little closet. Just the kitchen. Just take on the kitchen. Stop overwhelming yourself with trying to create a habit that will shift everything at once. And take a small, simple, measurable step towards mastery in one area that you feel like you can handle. And you decide, right? You decide how small you need to break it down into. Because a lot of times these patterns are unconscious. And instead of, the overwhelm of trying to do something dramatic or grandiose, trying to make some massive commitment, some massive resolution, some massive shift, like, I didn't save for my retirement, so now I have to save everything. Everything. Start somewhere, start small. Take a principle-based action and trust that you will move towards a goal. I was recently shown one of those papers, which I remember from my first year's teaching. I was in my early 20s when I went into education in Colorado, and I remember sitting in a meeting, and I remember they had this chart, they printed out this chart, where they sat you down, everyone in a room, and they said, if you start saving this amount now, by the time you are this age, you will have this much. And then they went through and they said, and you find your age, 22, 23, 21, whatever it is. You find your age, and then you go, 60. 25, I'll have that. If I only put in this much. But then they showed you, if you start at 30, this is what it'll be. If you start at 40, this is what it'll be. If you start at 50, this is what it'll be. Which was a really smart tactic, right? Because you're sitting there as a young person thinking, okay, I can do that. But if it's not committed to, will it help you? Will it multiply? Will it manifest? Will it demonstrate into what you're looking for? So I was recently shown this chart that reminded me of that time as a teacher, and it was a chart on how to be a millionaire. Like literally, if at any age, if you start investing this much, like you could end up with $1 million in your retirement. Now, we're not going to show hands, but I'm guessing that a lot of us don't have $1 million in our retirement, right? And those that do, we're ready for the classes. But how many of us had an extra how many dollars when we were 21, 22, 23, 24, 34, 44, 54? That we may have spent on something that really didn't align with our values. Or maybe we thought it did, right? But we didn't know we had a choice between this and that. So much energy slips away. So many resources are lost because of alignment issues having to do with our resources, our time, our energy, our relationships, our money, love. I was listening to an audiobook the other day driving, and it was this man who was talking. He said, you know, my ex-wife, and I have an agreement that I don't talk publicly about our divorce. And then he went on to talk a little bit about the divorce. But he said really good stuff. He said, you know, a lot of the things for him were things that later in life he realized, you know, it was just he didn't invest in the way he could have. He didn't show empathy. He didn't show compassion. He didn't show up in ways that had he, you know, just done a little here and there, it would have made a significant difference. If we don't make a vision, if we don't create a vision, there's often nothing to live into, right? If we don't decide about principle-based action and having that in alignment with our choices, then we just kind of free fall in life. We just kind of end up with what we got. And so often we then complain about what we got, as if someone made it and forced us to take it. As if there was a menu to order from and we got something we didn't like and we were like, I don't even eat that. I don't want that. That's not good for me. If we don't realize there are other choices, and we don't realize that with small, simple steps, we can take those choices. I had a friend tell me, I wish I had the courage, and I might generate it, but I wish I had the courage to look at my statement and the pie chart and to see where I'm investing my energy and to see if I'm in alignment with where I'm spending my money. And in this example, it was a lot of going out to eat and stuff like that, and the thought was, I don't even want to see how much I spend on that. I didn't even want to see how much I spend on that. But if I had the courage to look at it and then make a decision about it, to decide what my number is in each field, in each area, decide what it is, and create a space and live into it, that would be great. A lot of families would love to support their children going to college, right? But not a lot have planned for that, right? So you get there, and maybe there aren't the resources to support that next step. But it's a very different story when you look at those same families and you see, well, did those children get gifts every birthday or every Christmas? Did they get a lot of gifts? Some got a lot of gifts, right? What if every time you got a gift, you also invested money in a savings account for something? Maybe it's their therapy. I have a minister friend that says a joke about that. She's like, a therapy fund, because if we don't mess up our kids, we didn't do our job. That's what she says. Maybe it's a spiritual gifts fund. Maybe whatever it is, it's your value. Maybe it's a travel fund, whatever it is. But are you willing to take steps to invest and align with your values, right? And co-create something that you want, that if you don't do anything, you will think is not available to you. You will think somehow you live in a world of lack. Somehow you live in a world where other people can do that, but you can't. You've somehow been left out of the resources of God, the resources of the universe, the resources of life. But we don't always realize we are resourcing life in each moment. What we do again and again and again sources and creates. There is an app called Acorn, and for me in my brain, it feels like it's really principle-based, really prosperity-based. It's an investment app. And what it does is that every time you swipe your card, it rounds to the next dollar, and it invests that money for you. So if you spend 98 cents somewhere, it invests 2 cents. If you spend $500.01, it invests 99 cents. But every time you spend money, it invests. How principle-based is that really? Right? So every time I'm spending, I'm investing. If you look at intentional practices, investing is where it's at. Investing is where it's at. With our time, with our love, with our energy, and with our money. And so often, we feel like we don't have enough of those things. But it's because we haven't harmonized our resources. We haven't gotten them into harmony with our values. We haven't become totally conscious or totally intentional in those fields, in those areas. And the amazing thing is how much shift can happen when we take small baby steps. Small baby principle-based steps. And things can shift. Big shift can happen. Oftentimes when we try to do the big things, we just burn ourselves out anyway. And nothing really ends up changing, and nothing ends up happening. There's something called the plank challenge I haven't done in quite some time. But you go into plank pose, right, where you either hold yourself up on your elbows or your hands, and you do it just the first day. You know, it's how many days long, over a month, but you do it the first day, and it's maybe like 3 seconds or 5 seconds. And the first day you think, there is no way I could hold this for blank number of seconds, right? That's at the end. Like, it's crazy. At the end, you're like, you'd try to do that one day, forget it, you'd be on the floor. But each day, they add a few seconds, right? They might double it or just add a few seconds. So the first day, I can do it for 3 seconds. The next day, it's 6 seconds. The next day, it's 12 seconds. And all of a sudden, something that you couldn't do one day, it is incredible. You can completely do it at the end of the program. Now, you wouldn't be able to get that done if you just tried to do it, right? But little by little, you generate the muscles. Little by little, you make the change, and all of a sudden, something's there that was not there before. Just by investing a little. It's about principle-based practices. I recently saw this meme about clutter, and it hit home. It said something like, when you clean your space, when you do the cleaning stuff, are you really cleaning or are you just rearranging clutter? And I was like, I am rearranging clutter. I am taking all of my stuff and I constantly move it around to try to make it feel better. Well, like maybe if I stop that clutter by the door, one thing that clued me into it is when I take little pictures of little G, it's like in every background thing, there's like a pile of my stuff, right? There's like my papers back there, or there's the clothes that I haven't circulated yet over there, like there's just something back there. And if you've gone into some of these practices about letting go, there's ones where you just revamp your house. And I've had girlfriends, they've come to visit me, taken all my clothes, thrown them on my bed, and said, okay, the deal is you have to keep only what makes you sing, what makes your heart sing. And then Judy and Linda get a lot of hand-me-overs. But it doesn't have to be that dramatic. But even just seeing that and thinking about how we change things, I was reading another article and it said that this woman has an in and an out rule, that it was simple, like how to keep a simplified life. If something comes in the door, something has to go out the door. At my mother's house, her neighbor tells her that every condo has a weight limit. And she has to be very careful because she is constantly exceeding hers. But there is a principle-based step that's simple, right? You don't have to go all Marie Kondo and spend like a whole weekend in anxiety about your stuff. But you can have a simple step, have a box in the closet. And it's like, that's the box that when I'm ready to let go of something, I just stick it in there. And then I check in and I bring it to Goodwill. I bring it to circulation. I give it to someone that would love to have it. But if we don't do anything, nothing changes, yeah? So there are resources available to you. There are resources available to me that we have not yet cashed in on, that we have not yet said yes to, because our minds and our thoughts might be saying yes, 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 and we may be doing the principle-based unity work on changing our minds, changing our thinking, and going, yes, universe, yes, sweet spirit of Godness, I would like more love and more relationships and more this and more that. But if I keep myself closed off and my actions say, I will never go out to meet anybody, I will never connect with a small group, I will never engage in this, I don't have a penny left to save, I'm going to buy a $20 present for this person, but I can't put $20 into a savings account, right? Our actions prevent our vision from manifesting. And we go, oh, how is this happening to me? It's happening to you, to me, because there's a block from it happening through you, through me. So how can I harmonize my resource? What are you invested in? What do you want to see prosper in your life? What is there something that you would like to see grow? Where might you need to remove your time and energy from something and invest it somewhere else? Breathe into it. Are you willing to take the time to get behind something? To take not the dramatic steps, but all the little actions that line up with something new, with a new choice. There is a menu of life from which we can order. Are we really willing to look at it? To look at what's really available, not what we think we're offered if we do what everyone else does, or we do what our community does, or we do what our sisters did. Can we order something that works for us and say, sweet spirit, sweet resource of the unity consciousness that binds us all, show me that I do not live in any lack or limitation, and show me in this way, in this field, in this area, that there is something that is for me that before I thought was not available to me. Anyone that's learned an instrument, which, sometimes, like before I knew how to play the guitar, I thought that was like the coolest thing ever. I thought it was so cool. My dad plays the guitar. I had a boyfriend that played the guitar, and I was like in awe of that. And finally I realized I loved it so much. I was like, I want to be able to do that. But to think of going from nothing to being a guitar player was like, forget it, hon. You don't even have enough years to get that good. But then you realize most songs only have 3 chords. And they're not that hard. And if you sit there over and over and move your fingers in small little easy steps, eventually a sound comes out. Eventually, you've harmonized. Eventually, you've arrived. Here's to small baby steps and our arrival. Namaste.